This year really made me question why I go out to the movies. Between an unhealthy insertion of politics, way too many drafts, and just overall a lack of good films, I just couldn't help but wonder, why am I wasting my time and money to go see shitty products? This is not going to be a positive video. It's going to be an utter bashful critique of what made 2018 one of the worst years for film ever. And the thing is, the critics would make you think this was one of the best years ever, because they've overhyped everything. Paddington 2, A Quiet Place, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, all got 10 out of 10s across the board, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and they're only serving to devalue films. When you give a film a 10 out of 10, you are saying this film is special. It is going to hold up against time and be looked back as one of the greats. And I'm sorry, but A Tale About a Bear Being Kind to People is not going to be held up as one of those classics. Just because a film doesn't have any overarching flaws with it doesn't mean it's perfect and should be held up as one of these masterpieces. These reviews feel so static. As soon as someone puts their opinion out, it feels like everyone else has to agree with them for the sake of not looking stupid. I believe that they're actually plugging these films into a mathematical formula in order to get a score, because these reviews feel so dishonest. It's like a computer's telling me what they thought of the film. When I'm telling you guys what I think about a film, it's coming from my gut, and that's what film review should be. Who cares about a score? Give your honest opinion. Don't try and give the most technical perfect score. By doing that, you're just serving to undermine the quality of the truly fantastic films, and you're overhyping films that are just not that good, aka Black Panther. Black Panther is one of the most overrated films I've ever watched. Marvel had such a consistent record from 2014 to 2017. They made multiple masterpieces and just never made a bad film, but Black Panther breaks that streak unceremoniously. These MCU films are built off of three things: comedy, action, and good main characters. And Black Panther exceeds at none of those aspects. Comedy-wise, what comedy? There's barely any comedy to speak of here, and the dialogue suffers so bad because of that. So many of these interactions are just so boring and stale, and the jokes that are there aren't that funny. And you may, argue with me, well, Nick, he was trying to make a really serious film. Well, guess what? Infinity War is the most serious of all the MCU films. Almost everyone dies at the end, and that film is still one of the funniest MCU movies to date. So being serious is not an excuse. Action-wise, this film is an absolute failure. Ryan Coogler loves these meticulously shot action scenes, but he sacrifices all the tension and excitement in them, such as the casino scene, which is just so boring. And the scenes that he tries to go all Transformers on us and tries to just throw everything at the screen and, see if it works, it lacks all the character moments that regular MCU fights have. The key to the MCU action scenes are the power shifts, constant reversals to see who has the upper hand, and this film just does not have those power shifts. And I mean, Jesus, the final fight was so poorly shot that it looked like two animated characters from a Pixar film, and you couldn't even see them because it was just so darkly lit. And even if you argue that the power shifts are there, they're just not impactful. And that's because you don't care about the characters, specifically T'Challa. Almost all of the MCU characters, at least the main heroes, have so much charisma to them, have excellent backgrounds. You know exactly what type of people they are and what they intend to do. What's their goal? And they're just so likable. Here, T'Challa is just like Thor, but a lot more stoic. And because of that, he barely shows any emotion. How am I supposed to get behind a guy who I can't even tell if he's part robot or not? No one came out of Black Panther saying that Black Panther was their favorite part of the film. They were talking about the supporting cast, because he is just a brick wall of a character. And because I couldn't get behind him and he drove the whole movie, I just wasn't interested in the plot as a whole. And that's not to say that there aren't great side characters here. Shuri and Okoye are both awesome, but for every one of those, you have his love interest, which serves no purpose except for to be a love interest. Martin Freeman is just there so you can have a white guy who's a hero. And then you introduce this badass villain, but hide him away for like 2/3 of the film so we can have Ulysses Claw going around saying dumb shit like he's playing Gollum again. And when Killmonger does come back, you have one of the most pathetic character fake-out deaths in movie history, paired with the fact that he loses all of his nuance, because he is not a character. He's Ryan Coogler's opinions on the world forced into one villain. And that's the biggest problem with Black Panther. It's not an MCU film. It's Ryan Coogler inserting his socio-political opinions into a film, and there's just no place for it here. However, so many people went to see the film because they heard it was inspiring, and it made a crap ton of money. So now Marvel is going to use this same format for other films. Regular MCU fans did not emphatically love this film. They found it particularly weak compared to Marvel's recent outings. However, the overwhelming masses, the normies, went out and voiced their opinions, and because of that, the MCU is now going down a darker road. Captain Marvel has been a marketing mess, the biggest failure of marketing out of the entire year. This film was getting slammed for not only having boring as hell trailers, but just having this expressionless and SJW-like hero that no one cares about. Politics will spell doom for that movie, as it has for other movies this year. A Wrinkle in Time, another big movie by Disney, completely bombed because the director tried to take out all the Christian elements which were ingrained in the original book in order to preach her own message. The Oscars, filled with political statements, was the lowest viewed ever in the history of the show throughout the 90 years it's been on television. Politics has only served to polarize the movie-going community, and it's made for unsuccessful box office turnouts. Black Panther was the one-in-a-million shot that it worked, but I guarantee you in the future this will only spell the doom for Hollywood. The films that were just fun and were just a blast to watch were the films that truly exceeded this year. Infinity War and Ant-Man and the Wasp are both, in my opinion, the perfect counteract to Black Panther. Both of these films have stellar comedy. A huge reason why their pacing works, even though they have long run times, is because every single scene is held up by terrific comedic performances. Ant-Man and the Wasp specifically has such a unique way of delivering jokes and such a unique tone to its humor that it was just enchanting to watch these actors go at it, and some of the funniest jokes the MCU has ever brought out. Action-wise, these films both exceeded in that category. Ant-Man and the Wasp specifically had some really unique action scenes that felt completely different from anything we've ever seen before in the MCU. And yes, while the Battle of Wakanda was sort of disappointing in Infinity War, so many of those action scenes had so many excellent moments of character and so many power shifts that constantly had me on the edge of my seat that you just have to look past the few faults with the Battle of Wakanda. And most importantly, the focus on the main characters were there. In Black Panther, there's so much time divided up to so many characters that we don't really get to see T'Challa. That first scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp, where Scott is playing with his daughter, sets up the entire film perfectly. It shows his goal for the entire film, to get back with his daughter and not be caged up like an animal. Furthermore, the scene where he's all alone playing with himself perfectly establishes how funny he is and what type of guy he is and why we should like him so much. Small moments like that sustained my interest throughout the entire film. And when it comes to Infinity War, they not only made every character in some way, shape, or form feel important, but they recognized that Thanos was the main character and centered the film on his odd crusade. That choice made for a much more natural experience that had every single YouTuber go and make a video essay about just how brilliant it was and how he was the hero. These films don't have the social statements Black Panther has, but they're much more entertaining and show why I love the MCU in the first place. And I pray that Disney is able to maintain this success with the MCU, because other than that, they're completely failing. Not box office wise, but substance wise. After 14 years, we get an Incredibles 2, but it's just the same plot as the first film with some few minor tweaks here and there. Winnie the Pooh, what a sad cash grab this was. Who was the audience here? Is it trying to be adults that grew up with the character? Because why would they go back and watch this film now that they're so old? Especially since it's not even colorful like what they grew up with. It's not directed at kids. The film looks far too bleak for that. So who are you trying to appeal to? Disney isn't trying to appeal to anyone. They're trying to make a quick buck and get out of there. Mary Poppins. Why are we trying to remake such a classic film that, while I may not personally enjoy, is so near and dear to the hearts of many that simply cannot be replicated again? The only reason why Wreck-It Ralph 2 was able to stand on 2 feet was because of other IPs that Disney had access to. The fact is, there is basically no originality here at the Big D. Wait. What I'm trying to say is Disney should try and build up new IPs instead of recycling old ones that won't have the same impact as they once did. Next year, their lineup has a live-action Dumbo, live-action Aladdin, and quote-unquote live-action Lion King, and I guarantee you that none of them will retain the same magic of their original, but will still make a lot of money because Disney knows that they will. Their practices feel scummy, and since they're the biggest blockbuster producer out of all the companies this year, it made for a pretty boring year overall. And then we have Solo. What can I say about Solo? Solo came out a month before my original rant on Rey and Star Wars, and let me tell you, was it so pleasure-inducing to see that film fail. It's everything I hate about modern Disney and modern Star Wars. Too much politics, Kathleen Kennedy, recycling old characters with no purpose. It was the perfect storm, and I'm so glad that true fans of Star Wars boycotted the hell out of this in order to stop it from making money. And what does Disney do? They deflect blame from the actual problem with Star Wars to just the fact, oh, well, it was 6 months from Last Jedi, and no. If that film was good, if there was actual interest behind it, people would see it because it's freaking Star Wars. That film failed because The Last Jedi was so bad, and the marketing for this one was so terrible that no one cared. And not only that, they allowed their fan base to get insulted by prominent Hollywood figures like Jimmy Kimmel. They stood back and allowed fans to get insulted as stupid nerds living in their mother's basement. They allowed their fans to get insulted. And even more insulting, they allowed Kathleen Kennedy to keep her job, even though she is the perfect emperor who has destroyed Star Wars at every turn she's been granted. The death of Star Wars would be enough for the House of the Mouse to have a terrible year, but pair that with the poorly handled James Gunn controversy, so much politics, and an utter lack of new and interesting products, and Disney had one of their worst years ever from a creative standpoint. And other blockbusters simply failed to pick up the slack. Ready Player One felt as though it was strung together by a 10-year-old. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was incredibly mediocre. And if you think that was bad, just wait for the Oscar films. Bad Times at the El Royale was easily the worst film I saw this year, and Sicario 2 was a shadow of what the original was. And the rest just look like generic dramas, just like they are every year now. Mary Queen of Scots. Who wants to see a movie about the Queen of Scotland in 2018? Besides Infinity War and Ant-Man and the Wasp, there were only two true successes of this year, Halloween and Mission Impossible Fallout. Halloween was an outstanding reboot which brought back some of the attributes of the original film and improved upon them greatly, and Mission Impossible Fallout, despite not being a 10 out of 10 film, was easily my favorite film of the year. It's one of the most fantastically paced action films ever made. The characters are great, and the set pieces are so amazing to watch, especially considering that Tom Cruise did most of them by himself. The commitment to this vision of a truly incredible action film and nothing more is what made Mission Impossible Fallout so damn good, and other films like it this year. The film industry needs to be more focused on creating entertaining movies instead of making movies for the sake of social impact or for the sake of making money. If you make a great film, people will go out and see it and listen to what you have to say. But if you continue to try and force down these ideas down our throat, if you continue to try and glean money from us even though your movie is not original in the slightest, you're not going to succeed. At least you shouldn't. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you all next time.